A city inspector, arrogant and corrupt, publicly humiliates a cleaner, demanding she wipe his dirty shoe. Little did he know that the woman, beneath her simple uniform, hid an identity that would make his power crumble. The usual hum of Central Square, a mosaic of voices and laughter, froze into an awkward silence. Dr. Roberto Almeida, a municipal inspector, a burly man in an impeccable suit and an air of superiority that seemed to have been sewn right into the fabric, pointed at his own shiny leather shoe, now stained by a freshly stepped-in puddle of mud. "You there! The cleaner!" His voice boomed, laden with an authority he loved to flaunt. "Can't you see the mess you and your team leave around? My shoe is filthy, and I don't walk around with dirty shoes." Helena, the woman in the simple cleaner's uniform, bucket and mop in hand, felt a shiver of indignation run down her spine. Her eyes, which beneath discreet makeup and a simple hairstyle concealed a sharp intellect and an iron will, fixed on the inspector. She had just finished cleaning that area, but a careless pedestrian had knocked over a plant pot, scattering damp earth. "Sir, I apologize. I can get a cloth and some water to clean the stain off the floor immediately," Helena replied, her voice calm, though inside a volcano of fury began to simmer. Almeida let out a short, disdainful laugh that made some curious passers-by flinch. "No, no, my dear, not the stain on the floor, the stain on my shoe, and I don't want you to fetch anything. Use what you have at hand. Or rather, use your hands. That's what they're for, isn't it? To clean." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the small crowd that was beginning to form. Some looked down, others away. A few dared to cast reproving glances at Almeida, but no one intervened. The inspector's power was well known, and his temper feared. Helena felt her blood boil. The humiliation was public, deliberate, and deeply personal. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to stand up, reveal her identity, and put that man in his place. But she took a deep breath. The mission required patience. Justice sometimes was a dish best served cold. With a slow, calculated movement, Helena placed the bucket and mop on the ground. Her knees, accustomed to years of hard work and, ironically, to hours in courtrooms, bent with a dignity that brutally contrasted with the absurd demand. She knelt before Dr. Almeida, who smiled with an air of triumph, as if he had just won an epic battle. "Excellent. That's how it's done," he murmured, extending his dirty foot. "And do it properly. I don't want to see a speck of dirt." Helena hesitated for a millisecond. Her eyes met the inspector's, and for an instant Almeida felt a chill. There was something in those eyes, a depth, an intensity that didn't match the subservience he expected. But he quickly dismissed the feeling, attributing it to his own power. With a piece of cloth she carried in her apron pocket, Helena began to clean Almeida's shoe. Each movement was precise, methodical. She showed no haste, no anger, just an almost unnerving concentration. As her fingers worked, her mind raced. She registered every detail, the disdainful expression on the inspector's face, the crowd's complicit silence, the feel of the dirty leather beneath her fingers. Almeida, satisfied with the scene, crossed his arms and watched, as if attending a private spectacle. "That's it. Good work. That's what you're for, after all, to maintain order and cleanliness for those who truly matter." Helena finished the first shoe, which now gleamed impeccably. Without Almeida needing to ask, she reached for the other foot, which he offered with the same arrogance. The plainclothes judge endured the affront, letting every drop of humiliation accumulate, not to break her, but to strengthen her resolve. She was at her limit, yes, but it was a limit she herself had set, and it was about to be crossed. Helena, with the same surgical precision, reached for Almeida's second shoe. The leather, once lustrous, now displayed the same mud stain as the first. She felt the inspector's heavy gaze upon her, a mixture of satisfaction and disdain. Every fiber of her being screamed in protest, but she forced herself to remain calm, her breathing slow and controlled. This wasn't just a dirty shoe, it was a symbol of the arrogance, of the abuse of power that she, as a federal judge, had sworn to combat. As her cloth-protected fingers scrubbed away the dirt, Helena mentally registered every detail of the scene. The morning sunlight, which had previously seemed welcoming, now bathed the square in an almost cruel glare, exposing the humiliation in plain sight. The crowd's silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional chirp of a bird or the distant hum of traffic. No one intervened. No one dared. And this passivity, this tacit acceptance of injustice, was almost as revolting as Almeida's actions themselves. "Taking your time, aren't you?" Almeida grumbled, his tone suggesting impatience and a slight boredom. "I don't have all day to wait for you to finish your artwork. Hurry up, I have important meetings, things for people who actually make a difference in this city." Helena didn't respond. Her eyes, previously fixed on the shoe, lifted for an instant to meet Almeida's. The chill he had felt before returned, more intense, but he ignored it, attributing it to his own irritation. He saw only the cleaner, kneeling, obeying his orders. But Helena saw the man behind the expensive suit, the fragility of his authority, built on fear and intimidation, and she knew she was about to dismantle it. With each movement of the cloth, Helena's anger transformed into a cold, unwavering resolve. She thought of the countless cases she had judged, the victims of abuse of power, the people who, like her now, had been silenced and humiliated. That moment, that personal affront, was the last straw, the catalyst she needed to act, not just as a judge, but as the woman who refused to be broken. Finally, the second shoe was impeccable. The leather gleamed under the sun, reflecting Almeida's distorted, satisfied smile. Helena placed the dirty cloth next to the bucket. Her knees, which had endured the indignity, now straightened with deliberate slowness. She rose, not with the haste of someone trying to escape an embarrassing situation, but with the calm of someone about to take control. Almeida, still in his bubble of superiority, watched her. "Very good. Now that's better. See how simple it is to do a good job when you have the right guidance. Next time, I hope you won't need a lesson like this." He made a dismissive gesture with his hand, as if waving her away. "You may go, and try to keep things clean around here, for all our sakes." Helena didn't move. Her eyes, previously veiled by the humility of the uniform, now shone with an intensity that made Almeida hesitate. That gaze was not that of a cleaner. It was the gaze of someone who saw right through him, who evaluated him, who judged him. Almeida's smile wavered. With a slow, calculated movement, Helena brought her hands to the collar of her simple uniform. The crowd, which had until then watched in silence, felt a shift in the air, a palpable tension that came not from the inspector's arrogance, but from the woman's stillness. Her fingers untied the knot of the scarf that held her hair, and then, with an unnerving serenity, she began to unbutton her apron. Almeida watched, confused, as the scene unfolded. "What are you doing? This isn't time to change clothes. Go to work." His voice, once so full of authority, now sounded with a tone of uncertainty. Helena didn't respond. The apron fell to the floor, revealing a discreet silk blouse and an elegantly cut skirt that the cleaner's uniform had hidden. She was no longer the cleaning woman. She was someone else, someone Almeida couldn't identify, but who sent a chill down his spine. This was the limit, and he was about to discover what happened when you crossed the limit of a federal judge. With the apron at her feet, Helena undid the last buttons of the simple cotton shirt she wore over her silk blouse. The garment fell softly, revealing the elegance of the clothes beneath, and a discreet white gold necklace that had previously been hidden. Her hair, now free from the scarf, fell in well-kept waves over her shoulders, framing a face that, though without heavy makeup, displayed a serious beauty and undeniable intelligence. Helena's posture, previously stooped by the pretense of work, straightened completely, emanating unquestionable authority. Her eyes, once patient and restrained, now fixed on Almeida with a cutting clarity without a hint of subservience. Almeida, who at first tried to laugh at the situation, felt the laughter die in his throat. "What is this? Some kind of joke? I told you to go to work, not put on a little show. Are you deaf? Or do you want me to call your supervisor and make sure you never step foot in this square again?" He tried to sound threatening, but his voice faltered, revealing a hint of nervousness. There was something about that woman's transformation that deeply unsettled him. She no longer looked like a cleaner. She looked important. Helena, completely ignoring Almeida's attempt to re-establish his authority, reached for the small leather bag that was discreetly hidden under the cleaning bucket. With a precise, unhurried movement, she opened the bag and pulled out a black leather ID holder. The silence in the square was so dense that one could hear the rustle of the leather as she opened it. "My name is Helena Vasconcelos," she declared, her voice now resonating with a clarity and power that had never come from the cleaner's mouth. There was no anger, no hysteria, just a chilling calm that was far more terrifying. She held up the ID holder, revealing a gold badge and an official document with her photo. "And I am a federal judge." The air seemed to thin in the square. Almeida's arrogant smile instantly vanished, replaced by a deathly pallor. His eyes, previously full of disdain, widened in shock and disbelief. He stumbled backward, as if he had been punched in the stomach. The impeccable suit, which had once given him an air of power, now seemed heavy and suffocating. The crowd, which had until then watched in almost reverent silence, erupted in murmurs. "Federal judge? It can't be! He's screwed!" The reproving glances, previously restrained, now turned openly towards Almeida, who seemed to have shrunk in size. Helena lowered the ID holder, but kept her gaze fixed on the inspector. "Dr. Roberto Almeida," she continued, her voice still calm, but with a layer of steel. "You have just publicly humiliated me, abusing your authority, coercing a citizen to perform a degrading act, and worse, you did it to a federal judge on an investigative mission." Almeida tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. His mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. Cold sweat began to trickle down his forehead. The image of the cleaner kneeling, wiping his shoes, mingled with that of the imposing woman now staring at him, and the contrast was a crushing blow. He realized with icy terror that his abuse of power had not only been witnessed, but recorded in the memory of one of the country's highest authorities. "Your fate, Dr. Almeida," Helena concluded, her voice echoing in the now completely silent square, "has just been sealed." The last echo of Helena's words hung in the air, laden with a gravity that made Almeida's heart plummet to his stomach. "Your fate, Dr. Almeida, has just been sealed." Almeida couldn't breathe. The square, once a stage for his display of power, transformed into a silent courtroom where he was the defendant. His eyes, injected with dread, swept over Helena's face, searching for any trace of the cleaner he had trampled minutes before. There was nothing. The woman before him was an imposing figure, every feature of her countenance exuding a cold, unwavering authority. "No, it can't be," he stammered, his voice a mere hoarse whisper. "This is a mistake, a sick joke." He tried to force a smile, a last desperate attempt to cling to his old reality, but his lips trembled uncontrollably, revealing the panic that consumed him. Helena took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Her eyes, previously just intense, now seemed to pierce him. "A mistake, Dr. Almeida. Do you think the public humiliation of a citizen, the blatant abuse of power, is a joke? I assure you there is nothing funny about what is about to happen." The crowd, which had gathered in a semicircle, watched the scene with a mixture of shock and fascination. The murmurs ceased, replaced by a tense, almost reverent silence. Some pulled out their cell phones, recording the unfolding of that unexpected drama. Almeida's humiliation, once a private spectacle, now became a public event, broadcast for all to see. Almeida recoiled another step, stumbling slightly. I didn't know. I swear. I thought she was just a cleaning employee." The excuse sounded pathetic, even to his own ears. Fear was a poison that spread rapidly through his veins, paralyzing his mind and his tongue. Not knowing the identity of the person you humiliate does not mitigate the gravity of your crime, Dr. Almeida, Helena retorted, her voice firm and unyielding. The law protects all citizens, regardless of their profession or social status. What you did today was not just a personal attack on me, but an attack on the dignity of all workers, on the integrity of public service, and on the very justice I represent. As Helena spoke, two men and a woman, dressed in discreet suits and with watchful eyes, emerged from the crowd and positioned themselves discreetly behind her. They said nothing, but their presence was a silent and powerful reinforcement of Helena's authority. Almeida noticed them, and his terror deepened. These were not mere spectators, they were her team. Helena made a subtle gesture with her head to one of the men. He immediately pulled out a radio communicator and began to speak in a low but urgent voice, transmitting the first orders. "Your conduct, Dr. Almeida, is a reflection of the corruption and arrogance that permeate certain sectors of public service," Helena continued, her voice taking on a more formal tone, almost as if she were pronouncing a sentence. "And I, as a federal judge, have a duty to ensure that such abuses do not go unpunished." Almeida felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. He tried to flee, turn his back and run, but his muscles seemed frozen. Shame and panic immobilized him. He looked at the faces in the crowd, previously indifferent, now full of scorn and condemnation. He was a destroyed man, exposed in his most abject cowardice. I apologize," he stammered, tears welling in his eyes. "Please, I didn't mean to. I can explain." Helena interrupted him with a wave of her hand. "Explanations will be given in due legal process, Dr. Almeida. Not here, not now." She turned to the man with the radio. "Contact the federal police. I want him detained immediately for abuse of authority, coercion, and obstruction of justice. And I want all his inspection records from the last 5 years seized for a complete audit." The man nodded, already transmitting the orders with precision. The woman next to him pulled out a small notepad and began to record the details, while the other man kept a vigilant eye on Almeida. Almeida collapsed. His legs gave way, and he fell to his knees in the same spot where, minutes before, Helena had been cleaning his shoes. The irony was cruel, an inverted mirror of his own malice. He was no longer the powerful inspector, but a broken man, trembling and crying under the relentless gaze of the justice he had mocked. Helena watched him, without a hint of personal satisfaction, only with the seriousness of someone fulfilling a duty. This was not a moment of personal triumph, but of restoration of order. The square, once a stage for humiliation, now witnessed the beginning of a redemption. Almeida's fate, indeed, was sealed, and the distant sound of sirens beginning to approach confirmed it. The sound of sirens, previously distant and almost imperceptible, quickly transformed into a sharp, rising wail, cutting through the square's air. In a few seconds, 2 federal police vehicles, with blue and red lights spinning in sync, burst onto the scene, stopping abruptly a few meters from where Almeida was kneeling. The doors opened almost simultaneously, and 4 agents, uniformed and in bulletproof vests, disembarked with impressive efficiency. The crowd moved back slightly, making way for the newcomers, but remaining attentive to every movement. The silence that followed the police's arrival was even heavier, laden with expectation. Almeida raised his eyes, red and swollen from crying, to the agents. His body trembled uncontrollably, and he tried to stand, but his legs failed him again, making him fall back to the ground with a dull thud. Helena nodded to the agent, who appeared to be the team leader. He approached with a serious and professional look, and Helena handed him her federal judge ID. The agent quickly examined it, nodded in recognition, and returned it respectfully. "Agent Silva, at your service, Your Honor," he said, his voice deep and firm. "Agent Silva, this is Dr. Roberto Almeida, a municipal inspector," Helena began, her voice maintaining the formal and unwavering tone she had adopted. "He is being detained for abuse of authority, coercion, and obstruction of justice. There are witnesses and evidence of his conduct. My team has already initiated procedures for the seizure of all his inspection records from the last 5 years for a complete audit." Agent Silva turned to Almeida, who was now trying to crawl away like a wounded animal. "Dr. Roberto Almeida, you are under arrest. Please stand up and place your hands behind your head." Almeida mumbled something unintelligible, a mixture of pleading and denial. "No, please, I'm an inspector. You can't do this to me." 2 agents approached him, one on each side. With firm movements but without violence, they helped him to his feet. Almeida was limp, his body seemed to have lost all strength. He offered no physical resistance, just a muffled, desperate cry. The cold metal handcuffs were placed on his wrists, and the dry click resonated in the square, sealing his fate irreversibly. The crowd watched, many with expressions of relief and even satisfaction. Some discreet applause could be heard, quickly muffled by respect for the seriousness of the situation. Cell phones continued recording, capturing every detail of the arrogant inspector's fall. Helena observed the scene with an expression that denoted not triumph, but a profound gravity. Her eyes met Almeida's for a last instant. There was no hatred, only the cold determination of justice. Almeida, in turn, stared at her with a mixture of terror and a belated, agonizing understanding that he had destroyed his own life. "He will be taken to the federal police station for proper interrogation and recording of the incident," Agent Silva informed Helena. "The forensics team is already on its way to collect any relevant material at the scene." Helena nodded. "Excellent, Agent Silva. Keep me informed of the progress of the process. My team will provide all necessary support for the investigation." With Almeida being led to one of the police cars, his once imposing figure now stooped and humiliated, Helena turned to her own team. "Let's go. The work is just beginning." She didn't look back. Her posture was that of someone who had completed a crucial stage, but who knew that the true battle against corruption was much larger and more complex. The square, which had been the scene of an act of tyranny and then a shocking revelation, now began to empty, leaving behind only the echo of the receding sirens and the vivid memory of a day when justice, disguised as a cleaner, had manifested itself unforgettably. The sound of the sirens faded, carrying with them the stooped figure of Roberto Almeida. Inside the police car, handcuffed in the back seat between 2 impassive agents, Almeida's world crumbled in slow motion. The crying that had once been a muffled sob now turned into a silent lament, as tears streamed down his face, mixing with cold sweat. He looked out the window, watching the city pass by in a blur, each building, each person, a reminder of his old life, now irremediably lost. The arrogance, the power, the impunity he had so cultivated, all drained away, replaced by an icy void and a paralyzing dread. "Where are we going?" he managed to stammer, his voice hoarse and almost inaudible. The agent beside him, a hard-faced man, didn't avert his gaze from the road. To the Federal Police Superintendency. There you will be formally charged and interrogated. The words Federal Police Superintendency sounded like a death sentence. Almeida, who had always seen the police as a tool to be manipulated or ignored, was now on the other side, a common criminal. The irony was an even crueler blow than the handcuffs on his wrists. He, the inspector who intimidated, who demanded bribes, who felt above the law, was now at its mercy. Meanwhile, in the square that was beginning to empty, Helena watched the police car disappear into the distance. The crowd, still in shock, slowly dispersed, taking with them the images and videos that would soon go viral. For Helena, however, the spectacle was over and the real work was just beginning. She turned to her team. Agent Silva, please ensure that Almeida is kept in a separate cell and that no external contact is allowed without my express authorization. I want a detailed report of everything he says, even informally. And please, ensure that the forensics team conducts a thorough sweep of the area where he was and his vehicle, if it's still here. Any document, any object could be relevant. Agent Silva nodded, already picking up the radio to transmit the new orders. Consider it done, Your Honor. Everything will be done according to protocol. Helena then addressed the woman on her team who was still writing in her notepad. Dr. Lucia, immediately initiate the audit process on Almeida's inspection records. I want every license, every fine, every report from the last 5 years scrutinized under a magnifying glass. Look for irregularities, patterns of corruption, and any indication of extortion or abuse of power. Prioritize cases involving small businesses and self-employed workers. Lucia, a lawyer with a keen eye and a reputation for being relentless, nodded seriously. It will be done, Judge. I already have a team ready for this. We will unearth every scheme. The third team member, a robust and silent man named Carlos, who had maintained discreet surveillance throughout the event, approached. Your Honor, should I arrange for reinforced personal security for you from now on? Almeida may have accomplices or dangerous contacts. Helena pondered for a moment. For now, maintain discretion, Carlos. I don't want the full scope of our operation revealed prematurely. But yes, be alert. Corruption has many faces and tentacles. Let's go to the office. We have a lot to organize. As they moved away from the square, Helena felt the weight of the robe, even without wearing it. This was not an act of personal revenge, but a crucial step in her mission to uphold justice. The humiliation she had suffered was just the tip of the iceberg of a rotten system she was determined to expose and dismantle. At the Federal Police Superintendency, Almeida was led down a cold, impersonal corridor. The smell of disinfectant and the distant sound of voices and telephones made him feel even smaller. He was taken to a registration room where his fingerprints were collected, his photo taken, the famous mugshot, and his personal belongings, including his cell phone and wallet, were catalogued and placed in a plastic bag. Each step was a humiliation, a stripping away of his identity and power. Dr. Almeida, you have the right to an attorney, the registration agent informed him without emotion. Do you wish to make a call? Almeida shook his head, tears returning. Who would he call? His friends at the city hall would abandon him like rats. His family. How would he explain this? He was alone, completely helpless. He was then led to an interrogation room, a Spartan environment with a metal table and 2 chairs. Agent Silva and another agent sat opposite him. The lights were bright, the silence oppressive. Dr. Almeida, Agent Silva began, his voice deep and devoid of emotion. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us what happened today in the square, and be honest. We have witnesses, recordings, and the word of a federal judge. Almeida looked at the bare walls, feeling the weight of truth and lies clashing within him. He knew there was no escape. His fate, sealed in the square, was now materializing in that cold, relentless environment. He was about to pay the price for every abuse, for every humiliation, for every life he had affected with his corruption. And Judge Helena, the cleaner he had scorned, would be the architect of his downfall. The silence in the interrogation room was an unbearable weight. Almeida felt cold sweat trickle down his back, soaking his shirt. Agent Silva's voice, deep and devoid of any emotion, echoed in his ears. "Dr. Almeida, let's start from the beginning and be honest." Almeida raised his red, swollen eyes, meeting Silva's impassive gaze. He tried to formulate a response, an excuse, anything that could alleviate the situation. I don't know what you're talking about. I was just doing my duty, a routine inspection. That woman, she was disorganized, dirty. I just demanded she do her job." His voice was a thread, trembling uncontrollably. Agent Silva leaned slightly forward, his eyes fixed on Almeida. "A routine inspection that ended with Ms. Helena, a federal judge, cleaning your shoes, kneeling in public? Is that what you call doing your duty, Dr. Almeida? We have dozens of testimonies, high-quality videos. Ms. Helena didn't demand she do her job. She humiliated her. And it wasn't the first time, was it? We have reports from other merchants, other workers, about your modus operandi." The mention of the videos and testimonies hit Almeida like a punch to the stomach. The image of Helena in her cleaner's uniform, but with the gaze he now recognized as that of a calculating predator, invaded his mind. The terror deepened. "No, it's not quite like that. I got carried away. It was a mistake, a lapse in judgment. I didn't know who she was." "Not knowing who she was doesn't change the nature of your crime, Dr. Almeida." The other agent, who had remained silent until then, spoke for the first time. His voice was softer but equally firm. "Abuse of authority is abuse of authority, regardless of the victim's identity. The question is, why did you feel entitled to do that? And how many other times have you done that to people who didn't have the power to defend themselves?" Almeida collapsed. The tears returned hot and bitter. He covered his face with his handcuffed hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. I don't know. I lost control. I always had so much power. People feared me. I could do whatever I wanted." The confession, though incomplete, began to spill from his mouth, driven by dread and the certainty of his ruin. While Almeida faced his personal hell, Helena and her team arrived at the federal police office. The atmosphere was one of intense, focused work. Helena sat at the head of the large meeting table, her posture erect and determined. "Dr. Lucia, how is the audit progressing?" Helena asked without preamble. Lucia, already with piles of documents and an open laptop, responded promptly. "Your Honor, the team is already accessing the City Hall systems. Almeida's first inspection reports are being pulled. There's a troubling pattern of fines levied against small businesses, often for minimal infractions, followed by informal agreements. The amounts are low enough not to raise immediate suspicion, but the volume is immense." Helena nodded, her expression serious. "Exactly what I expected. It's not just Almeida, he's a symptom. I want you to investigate thoroughly. Are other inspectors involved? Is there a network? Who else benefited from this scheme? Don't limit yourselves to just the last 5 years if you find evidence of something older." Carlos, who was standing by the door, his gaze attentive, intervened. "Your Honor, I've already activated our network of informants. There are rumors that Almeida didn't act alone. He had partners in different departments, and some superiors turned a blind eye or even participated." "Excellent, Carlos. I want you to map out this network. Identify every link, and please reinforce the protection of Dr. Lucia and her team. They will be dealing with sensitive information and dangerous people." Helena paused, her eyes scanning the faces of her team. This is not an isolated case of a corrupt inspector. It's an opportunity to dismantle a larger scheme that strangles citizens and erodes trust in institutions. The humiliation I suffered today was a catalyst, but the real battle is against impunity. She stood up, walking to the window, observing the city outside. Almeida is just the beginning. He will be the gateway to a rotten system, and we will take it down, piece by piece. Judge Helena, the cleaner he had scorned, was now the relentless architect of his downfall, and the downfall of many others. Justice, silent and determined, was just beginning to show its true face. In the interrogation room, Almeida's crying was the only melody in the heavy air. Agent Silva waited patiently for the sobs to subside before resuming, his voice like a cold blade cutting through the inspector's despair. "You could do whatever you wanted, Dr. Almeida. And what exactly did you do? How did this power you so enjoyed work?" Almeida raised his face, eyes red and swollen, his dignity completely shattered. I demanded. Small things at first. A tip to speed up a permit, an extra to ignore a minor infraction. People, they paid. They were afraid of losing everything. I felt important. His voice was a hoarse whisper, shame and fear battling for supremacy. Agent Costa, the other agent, intervened with a more direct question. "Small things? And the informal agreements that Dr. Lucia is unearthing? The amounts weren't so small for a small business owner, and you didn't act alone, did you? Who else was involved? Who were your partners at City Hall?" The mention of partners made Almeida tremble even more. He knew that by implicating others, he would be sealing his own fate of isolation and perhaps an even greater sentence. But the agent's relentless gaze and the certainty that they already had information pressed him. I can't. They're dangerous. Dangerous like you were to your victims, Dr. Almeida, Silva retorted without a shred of compassion. The difference is that now you're on this side, and Judge Helena isn't afraid of dangerous people. If you cooperate, perhaps we can consider that. If not, well, you already know what happens to those who try to protect criminals. Almeida swallowed hard, sweat trickling down his forehead. The image of Helena, first as a humiliated cleaner, then as the imposing judge, haunted him. He knew she wouldn't back down. There was the licensing department, the head of inspection. He knew. And the people from the public works department. They had a scheme with the construction companies, and we did the cleanup for them, ensuring that no one interfered. In return, we got our share. The confession began to flow, a river of rot he had contained for years. As Almeida unraveled the web of corruption under the relentless pressure of the agents, in the federal police office, Helena listened intently to her team's reports. The meeting room, now illuminated by artificial light, was an operations center. "Your Honor, the initial data is alarming," Lucia began, pointing to graphs and spreadsheets on her laptop. Almeida had a clear pattern. He targeted street vendors, small restaurants, and neighborhood shops. The fines were always for minor infractions, but the value of the agreement was always a percentage of the daily or weekly revenue. "We have records of deposits into strawman accounts and transfers to accounts we are tracking. The volume, as I said, is immense. He collected hundreds of thousands over the years." Helena nodded, her expression grim. "And the other inspectors? Is there any indication that they operated similarly?" "Yes, Your Honor," Lucia confirmed. "We are finding similar patterns in other names, linked to the same department. It appears to be an institutionalized practice, not just the action of an individual." Carlos, who had approached the table, added crucial information. "Our informants confirm There's a group known as the Lions within the City Hall. They control various sectors, from licensing to public works. Almeida was one of the field hunters. The leaders are high-ranking figures. Names like the Secretary of Urban Planning and the Director of Inspection are frequently mentioned. Helena closed her eyes for an instant, absorbing the dimension of the network. This is exactly what I feared. Almeida is just a pawn. Our goal is not just to take down the pawn, but to dismantle the entire board. Dr. Lucia, I want you to prepare a detailed dossier for each of these names. Carlos, I want you to intensify surveillance on the Lions. We need irrefutable evidence, not just rumors. And above all, protect the sources and the victims. They are the key to unraveling this web. She stood up, her voice firm and full of authority. The humiliation I suffered today was an act of arrogance and abuse of power, but it was also a window into a corrupt system that feeds on the vulnerability of the most vulnerable. We will not just punish Almeida. We will expose and destroy this network that strangles our city. Justice will not just be done, it will be seen by all. The determination in Helena's eyes was unwavering. The battle against corruption was just beginning, and she was ready to lead the offensive, transforming personal humiliation into a catalyst for profound and lasting change. Our share and their share, Agent Silva pressed, his voice like a cold blade cutting through the heavy air of the interrogation room. Who are they, Almeida? Names, positions. How was the money delivered? We don't have all night. Almeida shuddered, a chill running down his spine. His throat dry, he felt the weight of every word he was about to utter. There was no turning back. The dam had broken. The director of licensing, Dr. Otavio Mendez. He was the head of our sector, and in the Public Works Department it was the Undersecretary, Dr. Ricardo Farias. They were the ones who met with the construction companies. We were just the eyes and ears on the street, ensuring things ran smoothly, without problems for the big projects. And the Lions? Costa interjected, mentioning the name Carlos had discovered. The question was a trigger. Were they part of this? Almeida paled even further, the blood seeming to drain from his face. The Lions, yes, Mendez and Farias were part of them, but there were others above them. People who never appeared, who only gave orders through trusted intermediaries. The Secretary of Urban Planning, Dr. Gustavo Ramos, he was the leader, the true boss. Almeida's voice was barely audible, laden with a genuine terror that made him tremble. He controlled everything, licenses, public works, even the fines that were applied or ignored. It was a perfect system. No one dared to question, no one dared to report. His power was absolute. And how was the money moved? Silva asked, noting every word with surgical precision. In cash, most of the time, weekly or bi-weekly deliveries to front offices, or in casual meetings at expensive restaurants, always with codes and passwords, sometimes deposits into shell company accounts in the names of strawmen they recruited. I had a list of some of those accounts, and some of the strawmen we used. It's all there. The inspector pointed with a trembling finger to the briefcase that had been seized, where he kept his own insurance. Notes, codes, even some receipts I kept out of fear, for security, in case something went wrong. As Almeida poured out his soul in the interrogation room, the Federal Police meeting room buzzed with contained energy. Lucia, with discreet headphones, monitored the confession in real time, her expression alternating between shock and cold determination. She typed furiously, updating the electronic dossiers Helena had requested. "Your Honor, the names are emerging with alarming clarity," Lucia announced, raising her head and looking at the judge. Otavio Mendez, Director of Licensing. Ricardo Farias, Undersecretary of Public Works, and the Secretary of Urban Planning, Gustavo Ramos. Almeida points to them as the masterminds, with Ramos being the undisputed leader of the Lions. Helena listened, her jaw clenched, the information fitting perfectly with the puzzle pieces her team had been assembling. Gustavo Ramos, a name we had already heard in whispers. This confirms our informant's information and the extent of their power. She turned to Carlos, who was attentive to every word. Carlos, I want you to immediately mobilize a discreet surveillance team for Ramos, Mendes, and Farias. We need behavior patterns, meetings, anything that can corroborate Almeida's statements and give us more leverage. And above all, I want you to identify the intermediaries Almeida mentioned. They are crucial links in the chain of command and in the flow of money. Yes, Your Honor, I'm already activating the best of the team, those who operate in the shadows. We will be invisible, Carlos replied, the seriousness in his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Dr. Lucia, with the names in hand, we can deepen and accelerate the analysis of bank accounts and shell companies, cross-reference Almeida's data with public and private records. We need a complete map of this financial network, every diverted cent, every suspicious transaction, every strawman. Nothing can go unnoticed. This is the backbone of our accusation. Lucia nodded, already immersed in the data appearing on the screen. It will be done, Your Honor. Ramos's dossier will be the most robust and irrefutable we have ever assembled. Helena walked to the window, observing the sleeping city outside. The pre-dawn light began to tint the sky a pale gray, promising a new day. Almeida is the tip of the iceberg, but an iceberg that hides a mountain of rot. These lions feel untouchable, protected by their position and their network of influence. But their impunity ends now. There will be no place to hide. She turned to the team, her eyes burning with a cold, unwavering intensity. The humiliation I suffered was a small price to pay to expose this truth. We will not just take down the pawns. We will dismantle the entire structure from top to bottom. The operation will be surgical, precise but relentless. I will not allow arrogance and corruption to continue to suffocate this city. Justice will not just be done. It will be a storm that will sweep every dark corner, revealing everything to the light of day. The room fell silent, Helena's determination infecting everyone. They knew they were about to embark on the biggest and most dangerous operation of their careers. The hunt for the lions had officially begun. In the interrogation room, the clock on the wall read 4:30 a.m. Almeida, his voice hoarse and eyes bloodshot, seemed to have aged a decade in the last few hours. He had become a river of information, each word another brick in the construction of the case against the lions. The most important meetings, the ones that decided the big schemes, happened in a penthouse apartment in the upscale neighborhood on Rua das Acacias, number 212. It belonged to Dr. Ramos. He felt safe there. No one entered without his express authorization, and the orders. The orders were passed through encrypted notes delivered by trusted motorcycle couriers or in phone conversations using burner phones that were swapped weekly. Almeida revealed, his voice almost a whisper. They had an alert system. If one of us was caught, the code was, "The rain will fall." That meant destroying everything, erasing tracks, disappearing. Silva and Costa exchanged glances, noting every detail. "And the larger payments? The bribes from the big construction companies?" Silva asked, his pen dancing on the notepad. "Those were made in an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone, behind a construction material distributor owned by a cousin of Mendes. Always at night, always with armed security. The money was weighed, not counted. Then it was taken to Dr. Casio Azevedo's office, where he cleaned everything. Almeida explained, a chill running through his body as he relived the scenes. I saw piles of cash there, suitcases full. Meanwhile, in the federal police meeting room, adrenaline pulsed. Lucia, with the search and seizure warrant for Casio Azevedo's office already printed and digitally signed, presented the latest discoveries. Your Honor, we've cross-referenced Almeida's data with public records and managed to identify several shell companies linked to Dr. Casio Azevedo. There's a pattern of suspicious financial activity with transfers to offshore accounts, exactly as Almeida described. His office, Azevedo and Associates, is the nerve center of the money laundering, Lucia informed, pointing to a complex organizational chart that appeared on the screen. The warrant is ready to be executed. Carlos, who had just hung up the phone, approached the table, his expression grave. My surveillance team has news. Ramos, the Secretary of Urban Planning, just made a call from a burner phone. The conversation was brief, but he used the phrase, "the rain will fall," when speaking to one of the intermediaries. It seems the news of our operation, or at least Almeida's absence, is already starting to cause panic. Helena felt a shiver. The mention of the alert code meant time was running out. They are on alert. That means we have to act now. We cannot give them a chance to destroy evidence or flee. Dr. Casio Azevedo is the key. If he starts erasing tracks, we will lose the backbone of the money laundering. She turned to Lucia. Lucia, immediately activate the search and seizure team. I want Azevedo's office raided before the sun fully rises. We need all computers, documents, financial records. I want every paper scanned, every digital file copied, and Dr. Azevedo is to be detained for interrogation. Lucia nodded, already calling the team. It will be done, Your Honor. Team Alpha is already on its way. Helena then turned to Carlos. Carlos, surveillance on Ramos, Mendez, and Farias must be intensified to the maximum. If they try to flee, if they try to dispose of anything, I want them intercepted immediately. And the intermediaries Almeida mentioned, those who received Ramos's call, must also be located and monitored. We need to know where this rain will spread. Yes, Your Honor, no one will escape our radar, Carlos replied, his voice firm. The judge walked to the window again. The sky was no longer grey, but tinged with a deep purple, with the first streaks of orange and pink announcing the sunrise. The city was beginning to awaken, oblivious to the storm that was about to descend upon its pillars of power. The humiliation I suffered was the catalyst, but the justice I seek is for all those who were crushed by these lions, Helena declared, her voice low but laden with an unwavering force. They thought they could operate in the shadows forever, but the light of truth is relentless. Today, that light will burn. We will dismantle this network of corruption brick by brick. The hunt is no longer a preparation. The hunt has begun. The team, exhausted but invigorated by Helena's determination, prepared for action. Dawn brought not only a new day, but the beginning of a new era for the city, where justice finally would begin to roar louder than the lions. The storm was coming, and its first lightning bolt was about to strike Dr. Casio Azevedo's office. Exactly at 4:45 a.m., as the sky still wrestled between purple and grey, an unmarked black van stopped discreetly in front of the imposing commercial building that housed Azevedo and Associates. Team Alpha, led by an experienced agent named Torres, descended in silence, their movements precise and coordinated. The search and seizure warrant, digitally signed by Helena, was in their hands. The night doorman, a sleepy old man, barely had time to react before the agents, displaying their credentials, instructed him to open access. Within seconds, the elevator ascended to the top floor, where Casio Azevedo's office was located. Inside the luxurious office, Casio Azevedo, a middle-aged man with impeccably combed grey hair and a crumpled silk suit, was in a panic. Ramos's call, with the phrase, "The rain will fall," had woken him from a light sleep and thrown him into a whirlwind of terror. He was frantically trying to delete files from his main computer, his hands trembling as he typed passwords and commands. Piles of confidential documents were scattered across his desk, some already torn, others awaiting the shredder. The thunderous sound of the door being forced open made Azevedo jump from his chair. Federal agents in vests and with weapons drawn stormed the room. "Dr. Casio Azevedo?" Torres asked, his voice firm and authoritative. Azevedo, pale, attempted a last maneuver. "What is the meaning of this? You cannot invade my office. I have rights." "We have a search and seizure warrant, Dr. Azevedo," Torres replied, showing the document. "Everything in this office is now evidence. Step away from the computer. Agent Silva, ensure nothing is deleted." An agent moved quickly to Azevedo's computer, while others began to search the rooms methodically, every drawer, every cabinet, every shelf. Azevedo watched, helpless, his fortress crumbling before his eyes. He tried to argue, to threaten, but his words were lost in the buzz of the search. "We found this, Chief," an agent shouted from an adjacent room, holding a leather-bound ledger with coded notes and names that perfectly matched the details provided by Almeida. It seems Dr. Azevedo wasn't as digital as he thought. Meanwhile, Ramos's alert rain was wreaking havoc elsewhere in the city. At Ramos's mansion, the Secretary of Urban Planning, the scene was one of controlled chaos. He was in his private office, feeding documents into an industrial shredder, the sound of paper being chewed echoing in the pre-dawn hours. His wife, awakened by the noise, tried to understand what was happening. "Ramos, what are you doing? That's our money!" she exclaimed, watching him destroy bank statements and contracts. "Shut up! They're coming! The rain will fall!" he screamed, his voice distorted by panic. It was at that moment that the doorbell rang insistently. Ramos froze. Through the intercom, a calm, authoritative voice announced, "Federal Police, we have an arrest warrant, Secretary Ramos." Ramos attempted a desperate escape through the back door, but was intercepted by agents who had already surrounded the property. He was handcuffed, his once imposing figure now reduced to a trembling, defeated man. Mendez, the director of inspection, was in his apartment, a travel bag open on the bed, throwing wads of cash and jewelry into it. He was about to call a taxi when his cell phone rang. It was Carlos. "Mr. Mendez, don't bother calling a taxi. We have a car waiting for you downstairs, and don't try anything. We're at all the building's access points." Mendez looked out the window and saw the black van parked. Resignation washed over him. He went downstairs, hands raised, to meet the agents who were waiting for him. Farias, the chief of staff, was caught in his car trying to reach the airport. His excessive speed caught the attention of an unmarked federal police car, which followed him discreetly. When he stopped at a traffic light, 2 agents approached him, one on each side of the vehicle, and removed him from the car. In the federal police meeting room, Helena watched the monitors, where images of the arrests and the search of Azevedo's office were transmitted in real time. Lucia and Carlos were by her side, their faces marked by fatigue, but their eyes shining with the adrenaline of victory. "Dr. Casio Azevedo detained, Your Honor. We found a hidden server and several external hard drives with encrypted files, and the ledger is a detailed map of the entire operation," Lucia informed, her voice choked with emotion. "Ramos, Mendez, and Farias are also in custody. All tried to flee or destroy evidence, but our team was faster," Carlos added, a discreet smile appearing on his face. Helena nodded, a lump in her throat. The humiliation she had suffered, the pain of seeing justice trampled, all was culminating in this moment. She approached the window, the sun finally breaking the horizon, painting the sky a vibrant gold. The hunt is no longer a preparation. The hunt has begun, she had said hours earlier. Now, the hunt was yielding its first fruits. This is just the beginning, Helena declared, turning to her team, her eyes moist, but full of an unwavering determination. There are still many lions to be hunted, but today the city will awaken to a new hope. Justice finally has begun to roar. Dawn brought not only light, but the promise of a new day for the city, a day where corruption would no longer operate with impunity in the shadows. The storm had arrived, and its lightning bolts were illuminating the rot, revealing the truth for all to see. The golden sun that finally broke the horizon not only illuminated the city, but also exposed the shadows that had for so long harbored corruption. The first news of Operation Sleeping Lions began to pop up on local radios and television channels even before breakfast. Images of Casio Azevedo being escorted out of his office, of Ramos handcuffed in his mansion, and of Mendez and Farias being detained shocked the population. The city awoke to a political and social earthquake. At federal police headquarters, the buzz was one of contained victory. Helena's team, exhausted but with a gleam of satisfaction in their eyes, reviewed the initial reports. Lucia presented the first data from Azevedo's hidden server. Your Honor, it's a treasure trove. Detailed spreadsheets, meeting recordings, encrypted emails. The network is much larger than we imagined. There are names of businessmen, high-ranking politicians, and even figures in the judiciary involved. The money laundering is just the tip of the iceberg. Carlos, in turn, confirmed Almeida's safety. He's in a secure location, Your Honor. His cooperation was fundamental, and the surveillance team confirmed that none of the intermediaries managed to escape. They are being located one by one. Helena listened, her mind already processing the next steps. The satisfaction was immense, but the responsibility even greater. Excellent work, team! This is just the beginning. Truth is like a river, and now that the dam has broken, it will flood everything. No one will go unpunished. While justice began to roar on a macro scale, the small lion who had been the catalyst for it all, the city inspector, Roberto, was in his apartment watching the morning news. He had just woken up, yawning, when images of Casio Azevedo, his patron at City Hall, appeared on the screen. The shock made him drop his coffee cup. Operation Sleeping Lions dismantles corruption scheme, the headline read. Roberto saw the faces of Ramos, Mendez, and Farias. His heart began to pound uncontrollably. He knew he was connected to them, that his small extortions and abuses were part of the larger machinery. But what chilled him to the bone was the mention of a plainclothes federal judge who had been the starting point of the investigation. The image of the cleaner, with her simple uniform and the gaze he had mistaken for submission, flooded his mind. The scene of her cleaning his shoes, the humiliation he imposed, the sarcastic smile he displayed. Suddenly everything clicked. The strange silence, the lack of reaction, the way she watched him. It wasn't fear, it was an unnerving calm. It was the calm of someone who knew that fate was already sealed. Roberto felt a visceral dread. He had humiliated a federal judge. He had ordered a federal judge to clean his shoes. His body trembled uncontrollably. He wasn't just another corrupt official in the police's sights. He had provoked the wrath of one of the most powerful figures in justice. His abuse of power not only put him on the list, but highlighted him as the spark for a gigantic operation. The doorbell rang. Insistently, Roberto knew it wasn't a pizza delivery. It was the roar of justice knocking at his door. He looked in the mirror, seeing a pale, sweating man whose eyes reflected the purest terror. The arrogance had vanished, replaced by a paralyzing despair. In the federal police meeting room, Helena watched the sun fully rise, flooding the city with new light. She turned to Lucia and Carlos, her eyes moist but her voice firm. The cleaner did her part. She endured the affront so that the truth could come to light. Now it's the judge's turn. Justice is not just a concept, it is a living force. And today it manifested itself. The inspector and all the other lions who feed on the vulnerability of others will learn that power is not impunity. The city, once asleep under the weight of corruption, was finally awakening. The arrests were just the first step of a long journey, but the message was clear. The era of the sleeping lions had come to an end. Justice, which for a moment wore a cleaner's uniform, now roared in its fullness, promising a new dawn for all.